Last Wednesday was a huge day for comic books' rising Canadian superstar Jeff Lemire because not only was it his Marvel debut after working with DC since 2010, it was the launch of his first Image Comics series, which has already been licensed by Sony for a movie. So, naturally, a big fan of Image Comics and Jeff Lemire's work, especially his independent stuff outside of the mainstream stuff at DC and Marvel. I was very excited when he launched Descender. Who am I to get so excited over this kind of thing? I'm the goddamn comic book mustache.
Read about my comic books, ruin all my mustache. Read about my comic books, ruin all my mustache. Read about my comic books, ruin all my mustache. Read about my comic books, ruin all my mustache. Read about my comic books.
Hola, senors and senoritas. I am that Mustachio Bandito, the comic book mustache, coming to you today with a review of Image Comics' latest series, Descender, by writer Jeff Lemire and artist Dustin McGivern. It's a really complicated last name. It's got a crazy spelling, so I'm hoping I say it right for this entire video. If not, please forgive me, Dustin, whoever you are. I'm trying my best. For the past few years, it seems like every week we're getting another series from Image Comics by a superstar or an up-and-comer in the field, saga, sex criminals, witches, Scott Snyder, Matt Fraction, Brian K. Vaughan. Pretty much everybody is going to Image Comics to have their own creator-owned stories and their own properties launched. It's a company kind of founded on the idea of creator-owned and independence, where you have 100% of the rights to the characters and the stories that you create, as opposed to the other companies where you really don't own much of what you actually write, which is a shame. So we are seeing a lot of artists and writers flocking over to Image to kind of let their imaginations go free, and Image is definitely letting them do that. These stories are crazy, and they can't be told in any other form of storytelling other than comic books, especially things like saga. Well, Sex Criminals has a TV show or something launching soon, but the material in it just wouldn't fly anywhere else. Jeff Lemire has done a lot of independent work. I think Top Shelf put out the Essex County and Underwater Welder graphic novels. Sweet Tooth was through Vertigo. It's really nice, though, to see him moving over to Image Comics. He's a creator who I really loved. I've enjoyed his DC stuff while he had his tenure there since the launch of the New 52, especially Animal Man, but I love his independent stuff. He's got this amazing adolescent kind of sensibility to most of his work, really fully realized world building, truly an amazing creator. And Dustin McGivern, he had done a lot of stuff for like Wildstorm and DC before, and does a lot of conceptual art for video games and toys and things of that nature. So the two of them kind of getting together and doing a science fiction series at Image is something we as comic book fans should rejoice in, because they are great creators, and now they can go crazy, do whatever they'd like. So, as I mentioned before, this is a science fiction series, a new #1, just launched this week. Let's take a closer look at the story behind Descender #1. The story begins on the capital world of the United Galactic Council just prior to giant planet-sized robots committing genocide against all 9 of the planets within the Council. It then flash forwards 10 years later, where we see a little boy who turns out to be a robot and his little robot dog on some moon kind of planet just waking up from a 10-year nap to find out that after this massive genocide, all of the races, I was going to say humans, all of the races of this galactic council got together and eradicated all artificial intelligence, and he is the last of his kind. This little boy robot can think. He is pretty much alive. It's a little kid. We jump back to the capital world. Now it went from 9 billion inhabitants to 1 billion inhabitants 10 years after this robot planet thing genocide. And they find out that the codex, which is pretty much robot DNA, as they explain to us in a simple little line, of those gigantic genocidal planet-sized robots, matches the codex, this robot DNA, of that little boy robot. His name is Tim, by the way. They got to get there, but they got to make sure they get there first. Unfortunately, this issue ends with a bunch of scrapper dudes getting to little Timmy before anybody else. I mentioned before, one of the things I've always enjoyed most about Jeff Lemire's writing, especially in his independent works, but also when he was writing Animal Man with Animal Man's daughter Maxine, is this kind of adolescent wonder, putting these kids into these kind of dire situations, but still maintaining the vibe and really the essence of what it's like to be in your childhood years. He's always done a wonderful, spot-on job with that. Books like Underwater Welder with the kid-dad stuff, that's actually brought me to tears before. Essex County did it really well, and Sweet Tooth especially. Even though it was a little deer boy, this series we get a little robot boy. And I'm very excited, and I was very excited because I had no idea what this book was about before reading it. When I bought it, I was really excited to see this character, Tim, even though I found out he was a robot a couple pages later. But seeing a little kid character being really at the forefront of this series, that's one of Lemire's strongest abilities, is to write these children characters and put them into these really adult situations without losing that adolescent sense of wonder that we all remember so much from being little kids, little mustachios. The other thing I've always admired most about Jeff Lemire is his sense of world building, again in his independent stuff, but also in Animal Man with the different colors representing the different fundamental elements, which was kind of borrowed from Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, but he did it with the red and Buddy Baker and Animal Man. Really, really cool world building on Jeff Lemire's part, and we definitely are going to get some of that here, that United Galactic Council, all these different planets, all these different races. It was very cohesive, it felt very lived in and very real, and one of the things I admired most about it was there was no bullshit, unnecessary exposition. As I get older and older, in all forms of media, it doesn't just have to be comic books, it could be movies, especially in movies. I hate when people just give you all this bullshit exposition telling you about backstory. It wastes my fucking time, and I feel like sometimes it undermines the viewer or the reader or the person who's consuming that content. Just give it to us, give us some clues, and we can put it together. We're smart enough. Outside of this really unique mystery story that Jeff Lemire's given us in this first issue, a story that 100% complements the writer's strengths in storytelling, Dustin McNiven's artwork is exquisite. He makes great use of negative space, implementing a very minimalist style at some points, giving us these gorgeous double-page spreads that I kept staring at other points. Amazing creature designs as well as architectural designs in this sci-fi story, stuff that's really important. Just like Lemire did with the writing, Dustin McNiven's artwork gives it a really living feel. They've definitely thought out this world, and it shows in the art just as much in the storytelling. Really great world building here. I think he did the coloring himself. He used what looks like a watercolor kind of style, possibly digital. I don't know anymore these days, but it really caters to the minimalist approach he takes on some of these pages. Absolutely beautiful stuff from Dustin McNiven. Jeff Lemire has really made quite a name for himself in recent years. I bet it's mostly because of his high-profile status over at DC, but it's really nice to see he's going with an Image series. Same thing goes for Dustin McNiven. He's been around for quite some time. Getting to see him on 100% creator-owned property is really awesome. I love seeing these kinds of creators go over to Image so we can see how they do when their imagination is completely let loose outside of stuff like editorial interference, worrying about sales, and all that kind of mumbo-jumbo that comes with working for a big company. This world feels fully realized and definitely well thought out, both from the writing and the artwork. The story plays to Jeff Lemire's strengths, and having all these crazy races and cities and planets and robots and all of that definitely allows Dustin McNiven to go nuts. Considering all of these things, I think I'm about to give my first of the new Stash Cave 2.0 5 sombrero review for Descender #1. Another home run for Image Comics. It never stops. If you are interested in reading comic books like Descender #1 from Image Comics, go to comicshoplocator.com. You can type in your zip code and find a comic shop nearest to you. Or you can find your comics digitally. It's really easy. I use the Comixology app on my phone. It's available for iOS, Android, Google, Windows, pretty much everything. And I really suggest this, especially if you're new to comics and you're not sure if you want to pay for them or not. Go to your local library. Knowledge is power, and it's a vastly underused resource, especially for comic book collectors. Thank you for watching the video. Please remember to subscribe to my channel if you find me at all entertaining. And if you don't subscribe just to troll me and be a pain in the ass, I really appreciate that as well. I recently reached 100 subscribers, and I'm having a little contest. Check out the video below. The prize is really cool because you will have complete control of the comic book mustache for an entire week, and whatever you can imagine, I will create, and you'll get your very own comic book based on your creation. So, thank you all very much, and when times get tough, please remember, keep calm and grow a mustache. Adios!